Dr. Robert Selig. In today's video, I'd like to continue my discussion of the tissue salts. So I just completed 3 videos on the tissue salts, but this is kind of an overall to explain why I use these tissue salts, because I put every patient of mine on these tissue salts. They may be on 1, 2, 3, up to 5 tissue salts, and I'm going to keep them on them for 6 months to a year to help really move the chemistry, because these tissue salts I find really help what I do, which is mineral balancing, detoxification. And so this is the genius of Dr. Schuster. Now, when I say genius, I don't use that term lightly. This man was intelligent, so he was on the scene around, the mid 1800s, late 1800s. And he could speak 8 different languages. So he was from Germany. So German is his native tongue, but he had a deep understanding of Sanskrit, Latin. So he was able to interpret the medical literature of old from those languages, as well as he was fluent in English, Spanish, French, Greek. So he had the ability to decipher all the medical literature during his day and time and see what was happening. And that gave him the upper hand of what was going on in the medical world. Now, Dr. Schuster was highly motivated and inspired and influenced by 2 giants in medicine, one of them being Dr. Samuel Hahnemann, the founder of homeopathy. So when we're talking homeopathy, we have to understand that the cornerstone to homeopathy is basically 2 principles. It's Similia, Similibus, Curantur, which is the Latin phrase for like cures like. Meaning the snake that bites you is the venom that will heal you. And the second half to that equation is minimum dose. So we're using the minimum dose of the like cures like to help move the vital force, to help overcome the disease, the illness, the symptoms. So that's the basic gist of homeopathy in a simple nutshell. So Dr. Schuster was highly, highly influenced by the workings of the genius of Dr. Samuel Hahnemann, probably the greatest healer to grace this planet. Then the other man who Dr. Schuster was highly influenced was Dr. Rudolf Virchow. Dr. Rudolf Virchow is considered the father of modern day pathology. He was the preeminent scientist of his day and time who knew cell physiology, cell pathology better than anyone in his time. And to this very day, a lot of his work still has passed the test of time. And the gist of his work was basically when a cell becomes depleted of the inorganic materials, that's what's going to lead to the destruction, the degradation of the cell that will predispose you to the symptoms, the illness, the diseases. So that inorganic material in the cell is the minerals. It's the minerals that is inorganic that brings life to organic carbon chemistry. So to bring life to that carbon chemistry, you gotta have the minerals, the inorganic. That's the yin and the yang, that's the sun and the moon, the positive and the negative, and that's the art and the science of healing. So Dr. Schuster stood on, the 2 giants in medicine with Hahnemann and Virchow, and he used Virchow for more the science, and he used Dr. Hahnemann for more the alchemy of healing, more the metaphysical energy of healing. And so he incorporated those 2 pioneers to come up with his 12 Schuster cell salts. Now, we know when we were analyzing the ash content of the cell that there's more than the 12 essential minerals. He left out the trace element. So I have this cell salt kit, and this cell salt kit has 33 remedies. Some of them are redundant because they're in different potencies, 3x, 6x, and 12x. So whenever we're talking a tissue salt, it's going to be 3x, 6x, or 12x. In the United States, it's 6x, but in other countries, it may be 3x, it may be 12x. So those potencies are still in preparation to the laws of homeopathy through succussion, percussion, the dilution of a remedy to give you the infinitesimal amount of the raw material. And that raw material in this instance is the minerals, using the greatest, finest mineral through the preparation of a homeopathic remedy to release the mineral from the physical matter. And that's really the essence of it. It's the information. The information has to be freed from physical matter, and that happens through the preparation of a homeopathic remedy in the potentization. So it's the information which is always non-physical. It's the information is what the patient is lacking. That information needs to be put on a physical carrier. That physical carrier in homeopathic terms will be a sucrose, a lactose, or an alcohol. That will take the information and that will be put on a physical carrier. Most typically it's a lactose pill. That will be done in a 6x potency. That 6x potency still has the actual crude mineral, which will be about 1 part per million. So that 1 part per million we take through the mouth, that gets absorbed through the mucosal layer, goes directly into the blood. So we have that mineral, the highest quality mineral, getting into the blood. And what it does is it allows the innate intelligence of the body to direct where that mineral needs to go, which cells are starving for that mineral. For example, if we're taking cell salt number 8, which is magnesium phosphate, we take that mag phos, we take it sublingually, it gets absorbed. Where if we're taking a crude mineral, we're taking a magnesium malate, a magnesium citrate, a magnesium chloride, or whatever form of magnesium we're taking, it has to go through the digestive processes. You need the stomach acid, you need the pancreatic enzymes, you need the liver energy to be working. It has to go through all these obstacles, all these hurdles it has to get through from, to be absorbed, and it has to get into the cell, and getting into the cell, it has to bypass all the roadblocks we may have with leaky guts, with poor digestion, poor stomach acid. So that's why these tissue salts get absorbed directly into the blood and allows the vital force to direct where this mineral needs to go. Because we know that magnesium is in every 100 billion trillion cells in us. Every one of them has that magnesium in it. So if we have a tissue compartment, perhaps it's the foot where we're cramping up, the toes are cramping up. So the magnesium is deficient in that aspect of the body. The homeopathic tissue salt will go directly to where the vital force needs to go. In that instance, it would be to the muscles, to the cell muscles that are starving for magnesium in that foot complex. That is the genius of these tissue salts. And so the tissue salts allow, what happens is the tissue salts are acting like the conductor in the symphony to tell the minerals where to go. So as we're taking a mineral balancing program, we're taking our magnesium, our sodiums, our potassiums, our calciums, our iodines, our seleniums, our borons, whatever we're taking, that still has to go through all these hurdles to get absorbed. The tissue salts send intelligence into the body to allow the magnesium we're taking in crude doses where it needs to concentrate most importantly. That's the genius of these tissue salts. Now, that's one reason why I'm prescribing these tissue salts, is to help orchestrate where these minerals that we're taking in crude dose, where they need to be directed in the body. So we're not worrying about the obstacles of getting them absorbed, because they will eventually find its way somewhere into that blood. And when it gets into that blood, how do we direct it to where the that mineral needs to be concentrated to. So that's one aspect of these tissue salts. The other aspect of using these tissue salts are its ability to help us deal with an aggravation. So all my patients that are on the mineral balancing detoxification program will at some point in time hit that speed bump. We call that speed bump an aggravation, a Herx reaction, a emotional retracing, where we may get a flare-up of an old symptom we had, such as a arthritic joint, such as headaches, such as skin flare-ups, such as, digestive gas, bloating type of stuff. And so we can use the tissue salts to help placate the physical aggravations we get or the emotional retracing we go through. So if we had anxiety as a child and we see that we're going through a retracing, we may get anxiety during a mineral balancing program, but the tissue salts will help to alleviate that anxiety to get us through it so we don't quit the program. So we use the tissue salts to conduct the mineral grid, the mineral matrix, to help deliver the mineral to where it needs to go, part A. Part B for the aggravations, the Herx reactions, the retracing. So we can use it both that way. And then the third way we use these tissue salts is for organ support. So for example, if I see a patient has a weak liver and all their signs and symptoms are, to me, telling me that we got liver stagnation, a fatty liver, a stuck liver, and that liver energy isn't flowing like it should, we can give the tissue salts for organ supports. So I would focus on the sulfate. So the calcium sulfate, the sodium sulfate, or the potassium sulfate. I could use one of them. I could use all three of them, depending on what I find they need. Which of the tissue salts will I employ to give some, liver support? And it definitely will be one of the sulfates. Could even be silica as a liver support remedy. So there's 4 possible remedies for the liver, but my favorite is the sodium sulfate. So anytime we use the sodium families, the NatMer, the NatPhos, the NatSulf, sodium sulfate, sodium phosphate, sodium chloride, we use the sodiums govern the water element. Wherever water goes, sodium goes. Wherever sodium goes, the water goes. So the sodium family, the sodium sulfate, is directing the water into the liver to delineate what needs to be eliminated, what needs to be reabsorbed. And that's the intelligence of these cell salts. So we're using the cell salt to help build up the mineral matrix, the mineral grid. We're using the cell salts to help deal with the aggravations. We're using the tissue salts to help in organ support, whether it's the liver. If we wanted to do kidney support, adrenal support, we'd focus on the sodium families. If we wanted to do bone support, we'd focus on the calcium families. So we can use these tissue salts in a multiple diverse ways to help move the vital force to where it needs to go, to help with the mineral balancing, to help with the detoxification, to help with all the things that prop up on a mineral balancing detoxification program. So that's the genius of Dr. Schuster. And when I say genius, like I said, I don't use that term lightly, because his ability to simplify homeopathy is why I consider him the genius.